Hi, I'm Rolf Bros with Shooter's Paradise. I wanted to make a video for all you Patreon subscribers about exculpatory evidence. We mentioned it earlier, we talked about it a bit, and here I want to discuss what we can do to generate evidence of our not guilt. Because we can't be innocent in a courtroom, but we can be not guilty. So what not guilt evidence can we generate? That's pretty important. And I'll mention a couple things as we go along where this saved the day for certain people. So let me ask you, did you give any thought to the firearm you chose to bet your life on, to protect your family with? Did you give any thought to what caliber it ought to be, or whether a Glock is better than a Smith & Wesson, or whether you should have a revolver or a semi-auto? Did you give any thought to plus P plus loads or standard pressure loads? The ammo itself, did you read reviews on the ammo and decide, man, I like this stuff does better in the ballistic gel tests? Did you make those decisions about the gun you're going to use to save your family's lives? If you did, you should be applying the same kind of thought processes to every other aspect of your life here, because this is where we're going to generate evidence that's going to show us to be not guilty, and that's going to become very important to us. So what can we do? First of all, lock your doors and windows. It's such a simple and easy thing to do, and it generates a lot of evidence. The vast majority, I think it's about 70% of entries into houses for burglaries come through the doors and the windows. So if you simply lock doors and windows and make that hard to get into, you will eliminate a lot of burglary, which is really wonderful. The additional thing is there that in order to get past a locked door, if my deadbolt is locked on my house, unless I'm dealing with some kind of world-class cat burglar, they're not going to pick the lock. And if I've got a bump-proof lock, it's going to be very hard to pick. So they're going to have to kick the door in. And when they do, they're going to break the door frame. And that is solid, direct evidence, because the door frame is broken now and the door won't stay closed. It wasn't that way before. It's this way now. They broke the door frame down to come in the house and get at us. And that will then provide me, in the state of Louisiana, tremendous additional legal protections if I do have to use force to protect myself. So lock doors and windows is just number one. In your car, in traffic, keep the windows up, because now no one can just come and reach in your car. Now they have to break glass to get into the car. If they want to pull you out of the car to fight with you, they're going to have to break the window in order to get the door unlocked. So doors and windows closed, locked, windows up, that's a very, very valuable thing. Consider this too at home. When you go inside and you lock the doors and you're inside your house locked, lock the screen door if you have a screen door, because that's additional lock that has to be broken. Oh, well, they can just simply take a knife and slit the screen, or they can rip the screen out with their bare hands. Absolutely they can. I'm with you 100%. But they've just created more evidence that they illegally broke into your house. Because what's going to happen is the argument's going to be made that they came in without breaking anything. It was not a forcible entry, or even they were invited into the house. Trust me, these kinds of arguments get made. So every bit of evidence that you can have is valuable. A broken screen on a screen door is a valuable piece of evidence. It can save your neck. So consider also a door barricade bar, similar to this. So this notch here goes underneath the doorknob here, and I wedge it in on the floor, and it wedges up against the door. It strengthens a cheap door immeasurably. That will cause whoever wants to come through that door to get at me to create a whole lot more evidence. They're going to have to damage the door a whole lot more to get to me. Number one, it's harder for them to get to me. Big win. Number two, they created a bunch more evidence of what they did in case I had to use force against them. More evidence is better. So then also consider security film. If you have a door with a pane of glass in it where someone could just break the little pane of glass, reach in and unlock the door, what I want to do is put security film on the glass there so they can't just chink and break the glass. But they have to take a brick and pound it, boom, boom, boom. Because even when the glass is broken with security film, the glass doesn't fall out of the frame. It's held together. It's like the windshield of a car. It's hard to get through. So it's not impossible, but it's very hard. So by doing this, the argument couldn't be made that, well, it may have been broken for a while and that piece of glass may have simply fallen out of the glass frame. And that just happened to coincide with around the time where I ended up killing this person. Rather than that being said, it's going to be shown that a brick was used to pound through the door. The glass had this security film and it required repeated pounding, and everything is pulverized and mashed. And you can see on the door where it was hit with the brick. That's different. They're not going to make any argument about some accidental thing. That was intentional. So security film would be a very nice thing to have. And then we can get to recording devices. So audio recording is great. I can take my cell phone and use my cell phone. Consider, though, that I'm not going to be able to do much with video on my cell phone. Audio will be great. I can start an audio recording device on my phone, get an app or something like that. 911 call is wonderful. Go back to your safe room, dial 911, set the phone on the bed. It records everything that happened, which is wonderful and I'm happy about because I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to do the wrong thing in this situation. I'm going to do the right thing. So I'm only going to defend myself. And so all the evidence that 911 call generates is going to serve to show that I'm not guilty of whatever this charge is they're charging me with. Because what I did was defended my kids. So beauty of the 911 call also is it's admissible in court and no one can question that person on the line. You see, when I sit on the stand, I can be cross-examined and questioned by the other counsel. But with a 911 recording, all they're hearing is my side of the story. They're hearing the fear, the genuine fear in my voice. Please send the police quickly. He's coming through the door. They hear the real, genuine fear. And that can eliminate a lot of questions about, did you set this up? Did you set a trap? Did you entice them to come in? So I can have audio recording devices. I can get a little device and put it on my pocket in my shirt and wear it every day and simply hit a button to start recording. I can have a recording device, audio recording device in my car, maybe on the visor. I can also have audio recording devices at home and in a business. Consider like your security cameras. If you have audio recording capability on security cameras, it's always rolling. And so anything that happens in and around your home is going to get recorded. That'll be very valuable to you. Consider, though, that with the phone, you aren't going to be able to do much with video recording because video recording is going to require a hand to hold the phone up and to do the recording, where in a situation like that, I simply don't have the time or the ability to do that. So the phone probably isn't going to be useful for video recording, and so I'm going to want security cameras for those things. Another thing that will generate exculpatory evidence is yelling very loud commands at whoever this is that I'm having a problem with. Because maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to convince them to leave me alone. Number one. Number two, it will attract the attention of people around and they will see what happened. There's a huge problem with witnesses because some witnesses tell the truth of actually what happened. They tell the truth. Other witnesses, for one reason or another, don't tell the truth and they tell an incorrect story. Sometimes they didn't see what happened, but they think they know what happened and they tell what they think they know happened. And what they think happened may not be what happened. So there's a real problem with witnesses. Getting them to see what actually happens is better. Yelling loud commands will attract the attention of witnesses, which will be beneficial to me. Retreating to a safe room. If I possibly can, I want to retreat to a safe room and lock all the doors on the way. A master bedroom of a house is a great place for a safe room. It works very well. And it doesn't require hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of high-tech stuff and passcodes and biometric scanners, and you don't have to have all that. All you have to do is be able to have a door that can close, that you can lock. You can barricade, like one of the door barricades I just showed. Something like that will work well. By going to a safe room and locking doors on the way, what you do is you create more barriers that have to be broken. And when barriers are broken, evidence is generated. So that's a wonderful thing. It also gives you time to access your defensive firearm, time to call the police, and maybe the police arrive before I have to deal with them myself, because that's what they're paid for. Let's let them handle it. I absolutely want to do that. Consider the firearm. This is a pretty big one. So in this case, one of the things that was very important in the case with Ronald Gasser, as the police were investigating it, was the casings. He fired from inside a car, and as he fired a semi-auto pistol, 3 rounds, 3 casings ejected into the car. That told police he was in the car when he fired the rounds. That made it look like he should get the presumption of reasonableness in Louisiana state law, which is a very powerful, very beneficial thing for somebody using self-defense force. Another one in the Trayvon Martin case, George Zimmerman, one of the things that seemed to be a pivot point in his case was when gunshot residue was shown by an expert witness to have indicated that the round that Zimmerman fired actually was about contact distance. So he about had the gun on him. And the gunshot residue was verifiable because he had factory ammunition. So we'll get more into that in a second. But having a semi-auto or having a revolver, those two things need to be looked at carefully. Revolvers keep the casings, the spent casings, in the cylinder. They don't drop them. Had Ronald Gasser in Louisiana, had Ronald Gasser fired a revolver, the 3 casings would have stayed in the revolver. He would have been arrested that day. As it was, he was allowed to walk free for, I believe it was 72 hours. While they investigated, then they found out, wait a minute, he's the original aggressor, so he can't claim self-defense, so he's going to prison. So in that case, he got 3 days of freedom because he had a semi-automatic firearm. Had he had a revolver, I'm certain he would have been arrested at the scene. The reason why is because when witness statements were taken, there were some witnesses that said he fired from inside the car, which is what actually happened. Happy Meal. There were other witnesses that said he got out of the car and chased the other guy around and shot him outside the car. That's not the actions of self-defense. That's actions of murder. Those witnesses gave in testimony that I don't like. So you're going to have witnesses that say both things, that you're guilty and that you're innocent at the, or you're not guilty at the scene. I want to generate evidence that backs up the truth. The witnesses that are telling the truth, I want evidence to back that up. See, that's how jurors in a court of law are going to be able to decide what actually happened. They're going to take the witness statements and they're going to look at the evidence and see what witness statement the evidence tends to back up. And that's where they're probably going to put their faith. And then, of course, once the jury has decided these are the facts of the case, this is what has happened, now we just apply the law to it. And it's very rare for an appellate court to overrule, to say that a jury was wrong about what they believed about the facts of the case. Generally, whatever a jury says they believe happened, that sticks. And that's very rare that it would get changed later by somebody else. So a semi-auto is going to do good things for me in generating evidence. It'll drop cartridge casings every time I fire. And those casings will put me in a rough area. It's not perfect or exact, but it'll tell law enforcement and people who recreate the event roughly where I was standing when I fired the gun. That can be very, very valuable. If I were to reload the gun, the magazine would fall and that would indicate where the reload happened. Now you can say, well, with a revolver, when you reload, you dump all the casings there. True, absolutely. So it'll indicate where a reload happened, but it's not going to indicate where I fired from. And that could end up being a very important thing to me. So I should always use a semi-auto for self-defense, correct? Think about this though. A revolver, when I put a revolver against something hard, I can pull the trigger and the revolver will fire. But if I take a semi-auto and jam it against something hard, I'll take the slide out of battery and the gun will cease to function. So a contact shot doesn't work well with the semi-auto. It works very well with a revolver. So perhaps if I have a concern that I'm going to have somebody rolling on top of me on the ground, a revolver would be the ideal tool for that situation. Whereas if I might be going to be shooting at varying distances, a semi-auto might be better for that. So the revolver also is more effective because the gases, if you contact shot a revolver, the gases from the gunpowder that expand and propel the bullet down the bore, those gases go into the body of the person who's attacking me and make the round more effective by a factor of 2 to 3. So I can take a little 38 Special and I can make that into a very powerful gun by putting the barrel of the revolver on my attacker in order to use it against him. And of course that will generate gunshot wound burn marks. Gunshot residue, there's stippling that burns into the skin as the powder comes out around the bullet. And if I have bought, this is the final one here, factory ammunition for defensive use, what I have is ammunition that is all the same. And there's lot numbers. Hopefully you will keep some exemplars at your house. Buy 50 rounds of whatever you need 25 of. That way you have 25 more of those sitting on a shelf. Mark them and label them. These are what I'm carrying based on this date. And now what happens is after you're involved in a shooting and they come to do this investigation, which they will do, when they do this investigation, they will get those exemplars, these leftover rounds that you didn't fire. They're from the same box of ammunition. So these then can be used to see the rounds that you fired, those rounds, what distance will gunshot burn marks show up at? And they'll be able to prove that you fired within 1 to 2 feet or 2 to 3 feet or more than 4 feet. And so, or even a contact shot. So they will be able to show with great accuracy how close you were to the individual when you fired. That could be critical. In the Trayvon Martin case, that is one of the things that showed that Trayvon Martin was on top of George Zimmerman when he fired. Trayvon Martin was not running away from George Zimmerman. That piece of evidence, I believe, was critical to George Zimmerman being found not guilty. So consider that. These are very important things. When you add up an avalanche of evidence that shows that I was not the attacker, I'm not the bad guy, I fled, I tried to get away, I did everything I could. He kicked down doors and broke windows to get to me. It's going to be very, very hard to convict you. And it may be hard enough that a prosecutor simply won't make the effort. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Absolutely. But if there is very little evidence and conflicting witness statements, I can expect that I'm going to have to go to court and I'm going to have to explain why I did what I did. And there's always a chance that even though I'm 100% innocent, the jury will not believe me and I may be found guilty. This is a real problem. So give some serious thought to generating some exculpatory evidence in your day-to-day life and how you go about doing things. Always, 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 whenever there's a conflict, put your hands up. I'm sorry, back up. I don't want any problem. I don't want any part of this. Make that part of your routine. Always put your hands up. I'm sorry. I don't want any problems. Please leave me alone. You'll be seen by any witnesses and any video cameras and any audio recording equipment, no matter where you are. You'll be seen as trying to avoid the situation. This will ensure that you're not viewed as the original aggressor. Because in the state of Louisiana, if you're the original aggressor or someone or the person who brought on the difficulty, you're not allowed to claim self-defense. That's it. Done. And if you originally at the scene or with your attorney present, speaking with a detective later, if you said, oh, yes, I shot this person who was attacking me, but I was justified in doing so. If you said that and it's shown that you are the original aggressor, you're guilty. You admitted to the actions that make up the elements of the crime. And your only hope at that point is justification. Now, if you have tons of evidence showing justification, then you're good. But if there is no evidence and it's just he said, she said, it could be a really tricky thing. So give some serious thought to how you can generate exculpatory evidence. I've given you a list of 11 items here. I hope that some of these things may have spurred your thought and you've realized some things that you can do. I hope maybe some of these things are things that you can add to your program. Anyway, I hope this is beneficial to you. Let us know what you think. Thanks a lot.